When the Bulldogs ran onto the MCG to play Collingwood in round 17, 1986, if I'd been compiling top 50 lists at the time, Dougie Hawkins would have been my number one. Welcome, Dougie. Nice to see you.
How are you, Mike?
I'm well, mate. Let's go back to that fateful day at the MCG. You're playing Collingwood. It's the first minute or two. I was at that game. All I remember is sort of seeing that flotsam and jetsam of players at an opening bounce, and then the great Doug Hawkins lying on the ground in a crumpled heap. What happened?
Well, Mike, I was under Mick Malthouse back in those times. I was playing on Darren Lane. I was tagging Darren Lane. It was only about the first minute. The ball had sort of come out. It was a kick out of the centre of the ground. I remember going front and square. As I turned, I remember one of our players, after watching the vision, was Angelo Petraglia, sort of blocked my way, and Tony Shaw had come from nowhere. I didn't even know it was Tony Shaw. Just slid along the ground, hit my knee, and straight away the pain for the first probably 30 seconds was unbelievable. I thought I broke my leg. And the old teammate Peter Foster, get up, don't show him you're hurt. I said, Foz, I've got a broken leg, mate. I'm in trouble here.
And Mickey Malthouse's mantra would have been to sort of not show that you're hurt, wouldn't it?
That was Mick's way of was. I mean, if you can crawl off or you can hop off and you've got a broken leg, hop off. Don't show him you're hurt. First minute of the game, Mike, it was pretty ordinary.
Big knees in those days, Dougie. They often ended players' careers, and they certainly did take the edge off someone who relied so much on their agility as you do. Do you think it affected you long term? I know you played a lot more footy.
I never come back the same, Mike. I never come back the same. I was never the same player. Our surgeon back then, who's still at the Bulldogs, David Young, he said, Dougie, your knee's that bad, you may never play again.
Wow.
Anterior cruciate was snapped. My media was just hanging there. My cartilage was ripped apart. He sort of said to me, it's a bit like a road accident victim. So to be at the age of 26 at the top of your game, and again, we're about to play finals on the back of 85, to be told you're never going to play the game again, which has been my whole life. I just love footy. You know,
and that must have had a massive impact on you. I remember at the time there were suggestions from people who knew you that your sort of life spiralled out of control a little.
It did, Mike. It really did. It was the word depression. You sort of don't know. And then as we get older, we reflect and look back. You know, my footy career was over. I lost my job as a truck driver at Kinnears Ropes there down in Footscray. My fiancée left me. Mate, I was a lunatic. I was out of control. And
what about the squirt?
Yeah, the drink. Yeah, the drink was my out. You know, even before that, I enjoyed beer. I mean, that was sort of, my upbringing coming out of Braybrook, footy back in the 70s when I first started, it was the culture. Have a beer for your mates, have a beer for the opposition, and that's how footy was. But that time in my life, the more I reflect back now, and again, Mike, I sort of felt sorry for myself a bit. Poor Dougie, footy career's over. You know, what am I going to do in my life? So, you know, I think at that stage, if I can remember now, Mick Malthouse employed Gary O'Sullivan to spend a couple of weeks with me. He struggled with that, Gary. He really struggled, you know, and he couldn't find me half the time.
I can understand why. I want to ask you about 85. It was probably the high point of your career. You won the best and fairest in a year in which your teammate Brad Hardy won the Brownlow. You played in a preliminary final, led Hawthorn early in the last quarter and lost it. That was the opportunity that got away, wasn't it?
It was, Mike. That's the one that we missed. You know, 17 years at the footy club. I felt that we had a real good chance against Essendon, and I reckon Sheeds knew that we matched up very, very well. But we couldn't beat Hawthorn. They just were a team they were a champion team full of champions. They really were. And, you know, you talk about, you know, blokes like, you know, Lee Matthews. Brad Hardy killed him.
He did, that preliminary final game.
I still look back, Mike, I've watched the game a few times. I reckon Brad Hardy was best on the ground, in my opinion.
Well, Lee Matthews was taken off the ground by Alan Jeans. Now, that's a massive statement when you take a player of Lee's calibre off the ground.
For a quarter and a half, maybe even 2 quarters.
Yeah, no, I don't think it was quite that long.
Was that long? Anyways, it felt like a long time. Because Brad Hardy just started from, you know, he won the Brownlow medal that year by his run out of the back line. And it wasn't all Brad's fault. He come back on the ground as great champions do, as Lee Matthews certainly is a champion. He came on, kicked a couple of goals there towards late in that last quarter. But if we get over Hawthorn, we had a good chance of playing in front of 100,000. That's what footy's all about. Yeah. And I'm sick of Dermot, I'm sick of Dipper saying, Dougie, I'll give you one of my medals, one of my 5-day, 5-night, because you've got none. I hate that.
But you talked about Dipper. Now, oddly, the Bulldogs played Hawthorn 3 times in 6 weeks at the end of the 85 season. You played on Dipper every time, right? Why are you smirking?
I love the challenge. I mean, it was a challenge playing on a bloke like Robert Dippy Domenico. You know what? He was 6'3". Should never played on the wing. He won the Brownlow medal as a wingman in '86.
But the popular view is, and this is from my memory, that you pulled his pants down 3 times out of 3. Is that fair to Dipper or not?
No, not fair at all. No, not fair at all. The prelim final, I looked at it. Dipper was a good player for us. Don't worry about that.
Was that the day he put the ball in your face?
Yeah, he did, yeah.
What did he say?
He just said, "Cop that, Dougie." And I said a few words back like, "No worries, Robert, that'd be nice." And Dipper was a great competitor. He was a great player. And again, what happened on the ground with me and Dipper stayed on the ground.
You grew up barracking for the Kangas with Keith Gregg as your idol?
Champion.
You played on him? You went on to play
I played on Keith a few times towards the end of his career. I used to go to Arden Street and watch him play.
Yeah.
And as a wingman, mate, he just had great balance.
So there's a bit of Keith Gregg in the way you played. I mean,
absolutely. I watched him and I watched the great Robbie Flower as well. And of course Shimmer was on the other wing, but I watched Keith Gregg. Mate, he had great balance, great overhead, great courage. Mate, he was an all-rounder. He was a great player, Keith Gregg.
I've always felt that you're undervalued because of this thing about you played so much of your football at the Western cum Whitten Oval. 1985, you averaged 22 possessions on a wing. In 17 games, you had 20 or more possessions. I mean, it's difficult for you to say, but did you feel like that you got the due credit for your exploits at that time?
I think 85, Mike, at 25, I was at the top of my game. You know, this is not being boastful, big-headed, but there were stages there where you'd run out and you thought that you had control, like it didn't matter who I was playing on. I just had that confidence. And with confidence, it brings a shade of arrogance. I just played a little bit arrogant at times, like that, a bit of flair and, and that's the way that I did in 85. And I remember Brad Hardy won the Brownlow that year, and I was very, very fortunate to win the best and fairest.
Well, you weren't fortunate, but talking about best and fairest, you only won one at the Bulldogs, which surprised me. You must have finished placed a lot, right?
Yeah, I think 3 or 4. Mike, I ran second. I remember 84, I was announced the winner. Kevin Hillier was the MC. It was at the Bulldogs Social Club. Great venue to have a best and fairest. Not these days, you're at Crown Casino or something like that. They announced me the winner. I got up to make a speech. As I started, Kevin said, "Can you stop, Doug? There might have been a blue here for the last round of votes." Shane O'Sullivan said, "Yeah, pull up." So I stood there on the stage as they counted the last round again. Andrew Purser beats me by 1 vote.
Is that right?
So it's like, Mike, you're getting 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 by 5 cards. If you get 5 votes by 5 and there's 25 votes, I get beat by 1 vote. So I wasn't real happy that night.
We've mentioned Mickey Malthouse a couple of times. Mickey Malthouse started his long and illustrious career at the Bulldogs. 1984, Dougie, you play a pre-season game in Collie, Western Australia. Pick up the story from there, mate.
Yeah, Mick was the new sheriff in town. I thought I'd test him early. We played out at Collie. After the game, we were allowed to have a few drinks on the bus on the way back to the Perth airport, which is about 2.5 hours, Mike, it was. So in 2.5 hours, me and a few of the teammates, I'll name one, which is Butchie Edwards. Me and Butchie had a few beers together. When we getting off the bus, Mick said, "No more drinking on the plane, that's it, all over." I thought I'd test him. So I got down the back and I had a few beers.
With Butch?
With Butchie. Had a few scotches, a can of Coke, and got the little bottle off the hostie, and, as you do. And I remember getting off, as I was coming off, I sort of walked past Mick and he said something like, if I can remember, something like, "Oh, set the alarm clock, son. Matter of fact, you might not even go around."
So he was suggesting that next week you'd play in the early game, if in fact you played at all.
I didn't play at all.
You didn't play?
Nah.
Your choice or his?
His choice.
Yeah.
He said, "Mate, I'm in charge of this footy club. You want to play games? I'll
It's a big moment, wasn't it? I mean,
I think it was. It really was.
Coach.
I'm at 24. I mean, I was one of the better players in the club, and I broke the rules that Mick had set, and I didn't play.
I reckon Mick would have been good for you. Because,
mate, terrific for me. I mean, I loved a good time off the footy field. When I played hard. I wanted to play every game. I didn't want to miss a game. I just loved playing footy. But Mick was fantastic for me. We had our ups and downs. We had our disagreements. But next day, shake hands, just get on with the job.
We mentioned plane trips before. Collie back to Perth and then on to Melbourne. The Bulldogs had an end-of-season trip to the States, didn't they, in your time there?
Yeah, after 85 final series, we flew to America.
International incident?
Yeah, we'll asked to leave a Qantas flight in Hawaii.
The famous flight with Captain Gronewegan, alias Robert Gronewegan.
Yeah, Robbie was best man at my wedding as I was in his. We both played all of our junior footy at Braybrook together. We were like brothers. He decided that he was going to be Captain Gronewegan on the microphone, which went from first class to cattle class. This is Captain Gronewegan speaking. There's been some air turbulence. I hope you enjoy your meal. It might be your last. We're about to go down.
Wow.
Allegedly that was, not in all those words.
Yeah. But see, and it sounds funny, and if we were in a pub and talking about it, we would all laugh.
If you do it now, Mike, you'll get shot by an air marshal who'll do 25 years in a slammer.
Yeah, yeah. That was a sort of a shameful episode for the footy club, though, wasn't it, really?
It really was. I mean, when I say it really, I think there were stages of it was blown out of proportion a little bit too.
If you have a bloke impersonating the captain of a plane saying, we're about to go down, is that blowing it out of proportion?
That's pretty severe, isn't it? Yeah. Retract those comments, yeah. I mean, Mike, it was probably, it was on the back of our finals. At the end of the day, you look back now, and then wasn't acceptable then. Even more now, you do that sort of stuff, you're in big trouble.
My memory is that there was a chance that you could have made Windy Hill your home ground at one point. Kevin Sheedy was pretty keen, wasn't he?
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, it was the end of '82. Bluey Hampshire was coach. I was dropped to the seconds in the last round. I can't remember what for. I'm not sure it was bad form or...
No, it was probably more likely to be something Monday to Friday.
Would have been a naughty boy during that week. I was very, very close. I was that close, and it was probably a little bit more money than the Footscray Footy Club would give me. I was going to a club that was going to play finals in '83, and of course we know the history, what happened after that. They go back-to-back 84, 85, and I missed the boat. I'll stay a Bulldog. You
broke Teddy Whitten's games record at your club, Footscray. Amazing to think that two players who came out of the one junior footy club, Braybrook, end up being the games record holder, and then you took EJ's record at 322. You're glad you stayed? You would be, wouldn't you?
Yeah,
you got reservations about that?
Yeah, I have. Footy's about playing finals.
And with your mates.
Yeah, and with your mates. And then again, you've got to be happy where you play. It's not about money. Back then it was about your jumper, your club and your mates. I could have been part of something at Essendon maybe if I'd able to get a game in those 84, 85s.
That's a regret, is it, that you didn't go to the Bombers?
In a way, a little bit, yeah, a little bit. I mean, it's all about finals. It's not about individual stuff. But that day when I broke Ted's record, Mike, that was Dougie Hawkins' mini grand final. And it's not about individuals, it's about team. That was my grand final.
EJ was there that day?
Oh, special.
Emotional?
Oh, yeah, mate, he was the best. Mate, he was... Yeah, he was, yeah, it really was. I sort of reflect back now, and I knew he was pretty crook. And, with that prostrate, Mike, if he got treatment early, EJ was still here.
He was 61, wasn't he, when he died?
Well, 63, I think. And I remember I was on the footy show when Eddie announced it, and I was sitting there with Sam. Sam couldn't speak.
I've only just found out in the break that the great EJ Whitten, Ted Whitten, has passed away tonight. Obviously, you're quite emotional, but he was a fantastic man and a great man in your life.
Great man, Teddy, yeah. Really great
man.
Right.
Did you know it was coming? Did you know that?
Well, I knew I knew he was very sick, and I didn't want to go and see him the way he was. I think he'd had a stroke, and I spoke to young Ted, and I wanted to remember the great man the way he was, the way I remember him. I didn't want to see him sick like that. And then when Eddie broke that news on the footy show, I'll never get that. I mean, it just...
You cried, didn't you?
I cried. Well, I couldn't hardly say a word. I just sat there and I said, mate, I loved him. He was like, the bloke. Mate, he could walk into a room and the room would stop. He wouldn't demand it. He wouldn't do it. He had the charisma. He had the character. He had the ability. He had the presence.
He had the aura, didn't he? There's no doubt about it.
He had everything. He was a bit of a villain.
A bit of a villain.
He got older. He never drank till probably the age of 27, 28.
He made up for it.
He certainly did.
He did. Before EJ got sick, Dougie, he was in Hobart on a state trip. You were playing for Victoria. You went out late after a game, and the police got involved. Is that true? I'm only doing this. It's a sketchy. I've only got a few details about it.
It was 89. We'd played Tassie. I think it was the B side. I'm rooming with the late Darren Mullane, who, by the way, was a terrific bloke, great player, great character. Would have been the next captain of Collingwood after Tony Shaw, I reckon. We decided to go to the West Point Casino after it, and there was a little bit of a scuffle.
No, there wasn't. A bloke King hit Darren Mullane, didn't he?
Correct.
Yeah.
And Darren didn't move one inch. Bang.
That was a good hit to put him
big
down.
shot, big shot. And I looked and I went, this bloke's in trouble. This bloke's in big trouble, Mike. So Darren's grabbed him and I tried to help Darren. There was probably 10 bounces and I weighed up very quickly. There was 10 against 2. We can't beat them. Darren said, let's have a crack. I said, Pants, we can't win. So we go out and then Pants said, hey, Hawk, we're going back. Hawk, we're going back. I said, mate, we can't win, brother. We'll go back into town, we'll have a couple of quiet ones together and the night's all over. And then we run into Danny Frawley. Spud was going in or coming out. And then
he was unlucky.
He was very unlucky. He was pretty stiff.
So he's with you two. The police are called.
Yep.
And then?
Danny gets handcuffed. And the police said, what about you blokes? Are you with him? We said, yeah, of course we are. We're with him for sure. So we get put in the back of the divvy and every corner, I reckon we're doing 80, 100K around. Danny's handcuffed, he's banging side to side. When we pull up, they take Danny to the hospital. Because he had crook ribs from the front.
Really? From the
fair dinkum, me and Darren are hanging on. We're hanging on for our life.
Yeah. But you did spend the night in...
Yeah, we had 4 hours, which I'm not proud of, Mike, but that's...
You saw EJ the next morning?
I saw EJ the next morning in the foyer at the hotel we're staying at. He said, Dougie, you look shocking. I told him the story. He said, mate, keep it quiet. Mouse, he used to say mouse.
Yeah, that's right.
Mouse.
Right. Yeah.
And when Ted said mouse, sweet, well, it was sweet. But it got out. Yeah,
of course, it always does, mate.
It got out, Mike. I think Rob Ashbury, allegedly Rob Ashbury may have got hold of it. I'm not sure it was Rob, but someone got hold of it.
Ended up on the front page.
Yeah, and I got suspended for 1 year from AFL footy, state footy.
Yeah.
Darren Mullane got 2 years and Spud got a reprimand.
How do you feel now and how did you feel then about, because they're notorious incidents, aren't they? I mean, they don't change the face of the world or anything, but were you embarrassed?
Yeah, it's a tricky one. It was just, I mean, it's unacceptable, Mike. I mean, that's the way it is. But that's what happened. I mean, what do? If you did it now, you'd never play footy ever again. Your papers would be stamped Hawkins, Mullane, never play AFL footy again.
Mm. After the break, Dougie, your proudest football moment? Dougie, when you finished at the Bulldogs, you wanted to play another year.
Correct.
And the Bulldogs left you in no doubt that they didn't think there was another year left, right? You went to Fitzroy. Mistake?
No.
No?
No. Mike, I love playing footy. I went into the club at the end of '94. We got beaten in the finals. I didn't play in the final series. I hurt my groin in the last game at West Coast. I didn't want to go on that note. And I went in there thinking I was going to sign a contract. You know when you don't see it coming? I didn't see it coming. Mm. You know, the coach, Alan Joyce, was there, Gary O'Sullivan, and I think Dennis Gallenberti. I don't think Peter Gordon was there. And Joyce said, Hawk, I think your time's up. I think you're finished. I was pretty gutted. I went home and I said to Rails, I said, listen, it's all over. She said, what do you mean it's all over? I said, well, I've been sacked. It's finished. It's all over. I'm gone. So I rang Brian Cunningham at Port Adelaide Magpies. Mm. Only one reason why I rang him, not him, but the footy club. They play finals. They play grand finals. What age
are you at the time? 34?
I'm 35.
35, yeah.
And then out of the blue, I ran into a bloke named Johnny Burt. Mm-hmm. He was a great Essendon champion, research coach at Footscray under the great Bobby Rose. I met him at a Collingwood function. He said, Dougie, what are you doing? I said, I might be going to Port Adelaide. He said, would you play AFL footy? I said, who for? He said, Fitzroy. I said, no. I'm one jumper player. I can't do it. And he said, Monday morning, I'll ring you at 9 o'clock. 9 o'clock Monday, my phone rang. It was John Burt. I spoke to Bernie Quinlan. You know Bernie well? I said, yes, I do. Ripper bloke, super player. He's the coach, he wants you. So I met Bernie and I met the club and we chatted. I got 15 grand as a base. I got 15 grand to market the footy club on the footy show and some radio stuff. I got 2 grand a game. So I played 21 out of 22 got taxed half, took home about 36 grand my last year of footy in 95.
And got to 350.
Got me 350 under Bernie Quinlan.
You're synonymous with the Bulldogs, even though there are some regrets, I understand that, and you were angry when they finished you up. A few of the more recent players think that you have too many shots at them, that you snipe at them. Particularly those who have been to preliminary finals, which is where you ended up. You know, that was the best achievement of your day. Do you think that you take cheap shots at them?
At the players or the club?
No, at the club. But the players are the club.
Well, Mike, I think because Doug Hawkins don't say yes because they want to hear a yes. If I think something's not happening and I don't think it's correct, well, I'm not scared to say it, Mike. And sometimes a lot of people in footy clubs who get different roles in footy clubs say yes and become yes men. I'm not a yes man.
Mm-hmm.
If I feel something's not right at the Western Bulldogs Footscray, the team that I love and played for 17 years for, I'll say it.
Footy show, mate. You look like post career. You look like you were set forever. You had such great symmetry with Sam and Eddie and the boys on the footy show. Now, but why did you leave? The footy show was flying.
It was dumb. It was dumb. You know what? I felt the footy show was struggling. I thought we'd get to a state. Yeah, I thought that we'd just start to struggle, and I thought my role as a court jester. And don't get me wrong, Mike. The footy show was good for me, and it was bad for me. Because people remember Dougie Hawkins saying manure, arcs, half a goose.
I wanted to ask you...
You know what I mean? Half a goose. And I think I have a pretty good footy brain. But people remember that more than the 350 games I played AFL, VFL footy for. They remember me being the goose on the footy show.
Who do you blame for that? I mean, was that contrived, or did Sam just take the mickey out of you? And
me and Sam had a pretty good understanding. The night I couldn't say manure.
Manure. That's the manure. That was manure.
Was that deliberate or not?
No, I couldn't say it.
Couldn't say it.
Sam knew in the green room. He asked me about Nauru being a part of a sponsor of Fitzroy.
Yeah.
He said, what do they make on the island? I said, they make a lot of manure. And as soon as he heard, I went, oh.
Yeah.
First question Eddie opens up is going to be Dougie about manure. And it was. And you know what, Mike? I was filthy.
Well, yeah.
I was embarrassed. I went red. The red light went on the camera. I had 1 million odd people around Australia watching me make an absolute mug of myself.
Yeah, so we didn't know that. It was like as if it was all part of the plot.
It wasn't planned. I couldn't say it, but I rehearsed it and I knew I could nail it. I didn't nail it. I mucked it up. You know what Sam said to me after the show? Shook me and he said, Dougie, that was gold. That was fantastic. The show's about theatre. It's about making things up. Don't take yourself serious. Don't be scared to laugh yourself, son. And after that moment, whatever happened, happened. Took Sam to shake my hand and say, mate, don't worry about that. That was fantastic.
Dougie, on a serious note, Nathan Prince, you're coaching the boys at Bacchus Marsh. You lose one of them. Now, I know it affects you, I understand that, and it's traumatic. Take us through that as well as you can.
It was 2-11. Nathan Prince was more like a second son, just not a boy I coached, and mate, it really was. It really, it was a tough time in my life, my family, the footy club, and Nathan's family, his mum and dad, Bernie and Ian, his Matt and Alicia, his brother and sister, and mate, Mick, you just don't know sometimes, Mike, that life's very short.
We're
in the back seat of a car. Nathan in the back seat going to a game of footy, a qualifying final, under 16 and a halves, and we're laughing, we're joking, and we're having a lot of fun. And then 2 hours later, I'm standing on the ground watching Nathan fight for his life. Made no sense, mate.
He lost the fight.
It didn't make no sense. He was put on life support. And then in that role, I had to coach these kids in the final series. We never won a flag in that age group in the club's history. We're playing a team called North Ballarat in the grand final who I didn't like. So well coached and well drilled in a professional team, and which we want to be like. But we're coming. Nathan passed away in the prelim final. We had the funeral on the Tuesday of the grand final week, which was the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. To have these boys stand there to say goodbye one of their own. Pretty hard, pretty tough.
Match day comes, you're the coach. Match day comes, you're the coach. You've got to try to pull it together. It's so important for them, for their self-esteem. How difficult was that day?
Yeah, real hard. You know, I didn't know what I was going to get with these boys. I didn't know if they already played the game. And then during the week, my assistant coach, Trevor Johnson, the under-16 reserves, said we're going to go to the cemetery after the game to where Nathan's at rest. Win, draw, lose. Pretty tough, Mike, isn't it? Pretty tough call for these boys.
Yeah.
So anyway, 2 minutes to go, scores a level, and they broke. And we kicked the last 2 or 3 goals.
Yeah.
And then we went to the cemetery after the game with a torch.
Did you?
Got to buy a torch.
Yeah.
And formed a circle, and we sung the club song.
Wow.
And I said to the boys after, I said, you're mates forever. You'll have a bond. You're young men now. You'll have a mate. You'll be mates forever. You'll have a bond forever. There's something special.
It's difficult because of the emotion, and it's literally life and death in the case you're talking about. But in all the things you've achieved in footy, where does the junior premiership sit?
At the top.
Yeah.
It beats Teddy Whitten. It beats a day broke Ted's record.
Really?
And that was my grand final.
Yeah.
You know what, Mike? The grand final wasn't about me. It was about these kids and what they did and what they achieved. I was there to steer it. I was there to guide it. I was there to make sure it went along smoothly. And on the day that they were there to play the best they could, that was my job. These kids did it. They were just fantastic. So this is at the top. Under 16 and a half grand final is the best moment of my football career, including winning 7 grand finals at Braybrook.
Hey, Dougie, there have been 3 Rolls Royces at the Bulldogs. Templeton, Grant and Hawkins. I love watching you play. Fantastic footballer. And I've really enjoyed the trip down memory lane today.
Mike, good on you, mate.
Good luck.
Thanks, Mike. Thank you.
This has been a Fox Footy production for Fox Sports.